What's the most terrifying thing you can think of?
Huge.
Brutal. Metal.
Hulking.
Naked.
Thuggish.
Naked.
Wooden.
Austrian.
Naked.
Cyborg.
Muscle beefcake.
It's the Terminator.
That's a lot to think about, isn't it?
In 1984, director James Cameron gave birth to a great big hulking naked thing. It was a low-budget action sci-fi film called The Terminator that became cult video viewing. Armed with nothing but his birthday suit and a few handy catchphrases, its star was catapulted from the world of bodybuilding to international superstardom. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the Terminator, a monosyllabic, unstoppable killing machine sent back from a future where machines rule over man to exterminate Sarah Connor, the mother of the future resistance leader. It was a terrifying vision of mankind's possible future and a stark warning about the over-reliance on machines and computers. When machines decide to kill someone, they don't give up easily. So after failing to kill Sarah Connor in Terminator 1, they continued failing to kill their targets in 2 sequels over the next 19 years. But now Arnie was the friendly killing machine, sent back to protect the good guys from the new cyborgs. The liquid metal Terminator in Judgment Day, whose skills allowed him to change shape and walk dramatically through prison bars, and the Terminator TX from the 3rd film, whose powers mainly involved looking sexy in tight clothing. As computer technology, cybernetics and artificial intelligence evolve in the 21st century, we have to wonder whether James Cameron was right. Will man one day be ruled by machines? Coming up on Sci-Fi Saved My Life.
In T1, we were faking robots, and by T3, we were making robots.
The race to build the world's first real cyborg is on. Fancy your very own unstoppable killing machine? Or maybe you want to build your own wife. Go skinny dipping in the currents of time.
Time is more like a river. Old man river.
Don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Oh, actually it is.
They're building more bomb shelters now than they were in my childhood.
And from cocktail waitress to Uzi-pumping Terminator exterminator, the legacy of kick-ass chicks with guns.
He's a bit like Rambo with softer hands.
Check out the tiny robots of the future. Very tiny and very deadly. And sci-fi meets amateur dramatics.
Here I come, look how fast I run.
So sit back, get your friendly home robot to stick the dinner on, and watch how over the last 20 years, the Terminator films have shaped our lives.
Terminator was a very important movie for me, particularly with my age. It was one of the movies that I probably couldn't get in to see at the cinema, but as soon as it was out on VHS, it was something that I watched over and over and over again.
The success of the Terminator took everyone by surprise. No one had really heard of James Cameron, but this fledgling director managed to make a tiny budget go a long way.
When you look back at the Terminator now and remember that it was made back in 1984, it's quite a surprise because visually speaking, it managed to do things that, in terms of technology and graphics, weren't that sophisticated at the time.
It showed you could take not much money and make a really relentless, exciting action picture.
Another key to the film's success was Cameron's ability to tap into the spirit of the 1980s.
It was just perfectly timed because the silicon chip was causing a real revolution. Microsoft and Apple had both just been born, 81, 84, and everybody was starting to question the rise of the machines.
Those Terminator movies, what makes them so successful is that shiver down your spine that you get when you watch them and think, well, you know, this is, I know it's sci-fi, but it could actually happen.
Tapping into our personal human insecurities, the idea that something could exist that is unkillable.
The Terminator is pure evil. He's not governed by any of the thought processes that we are as humans. He's totally focused on his mission. He's gonna kill, Linda Hamilton, that's it.
That's the thing that makes the whole movie terrifying, is that there's a programmed killer out there who's going to lock on you as a target and come kill you.
Whilst Arnie's Terminator scared the pants off most people, this guy was so impressed he tried to build his own cyborg.
Terminator 1. Saw the film, wanted to make it. The bit right at the end when Sarah Connor is trying to get away from a Terminator and it's reaching out through the bars, and there's shots of a hand coming out, and if you freeze frame it, you can actually see all the cables inside and you can see it moving, and I must have watched that 1,000 times, trying to work out how he did it. And then tried to grab it. That's all I wanted to do. I think that's the only reason I made it.
Fans of the Terminator loved Arnie's terrifying cyborg, almost as much as they loved his terrifying Germanic accent.
The fact that Arnie has his stilted, silly Austrian accent, well, it actually really works for the robot. I think he has like 15 or 16 lines of dialogue in the entire film. But the fact they are delivered so stilted, it really kind of helps the character.
The fact is, most of those 12 lines of dialogue are things that you could remember and quote.
Hasta la vista, baby.
You asshole.
I'll be back. And Uzi 9mm. Use the Uzi 9mm.
The Terminators in the Terminator films terminate things. It's their job and they're good at it. They all look different and have their own individual way of terminating things. Think of them as a pop group, a bit like the Spice Girls. There's muscly, liquidy, and sexy. Of course, they're all from the future and are far ahead of today's technology. So what would a Terminator look like in this day and age? The filmmakers have an answer to that question. The modern-day predecessor of the future killing machine is this, the T1. Production designer Jeff Mann made the thing. He knows all about it.
It wanted to kind of be a precursor to Arnold's model. It needed to look cool as well. It needed to have impact and have mass and feel kind of threatening and scary. Something fun to see, but not make it so otherworldly that you couldn't relate to it. A humanoid version was out of the question, just even from a practicality standpoint. Again, then have it be not a heavy visual effects laden robot design.
Jeff wanted the ultimate working killing machine, and he knew where to look for inspiration.
We knew that it needed to be something that could be created, that could function. So we looked at a lot of remote vehicles that were used by military and were used by, let's make it just like an absolute like single-purpose machine, and so that it can't do anything but move around and shoot guns. Like it's like a tank with a face, and not necessarily the friendliest thought in the whole wide world.
That's the Hollywood version, and here's the real thing. A miniature tank with a face, except without a face. Over in Boston, Massachusetts, Talon robots are being developed for a range of Army duties. Stuff that is just too dangerous for soldiers.
In the near future world, if you were facing a squad of American soldiers where you have 6, 10, 12, 15 armed robots coming at you from different directions, what do? Who do you fire back at?
The Talon started life as a mine disposal robot for the Navy. But give it a toweling down, stick a gun on it, and you have yourself, you've guessed it, a walking, talking, shooting Terminator.
The soldier can take his M16 rifle, 30 rounds of ammunition, put that in the sword system, and fire his weapon remotely on the robot.
Great, so you can get your killing done whilst hiding behind shrubbery.
This is the standard operator control unit for the Talon. It's equipped with upper and lower joystick control and the drive joystick, which controls the forward, reverse, right, left control functions. Then we have a fire control system built into the OCU as well.
And these Talon robots have already been dispatched on several dangerous missions.
First use was in 1998 in Bosnia to actually remove Soviet munitions in an area that a lot of civilian casualties could have taken place. And then World Trade came September 11th, and our robots were quickly employed in a search and rescue mission. 2 months later, our robots were on a plane to Afghanistan, deploying our robots from helicopters on a tether, dropping them off and actually driving them into a cave from the helicopter.
It's all very well abseiling from choppers, but I bet it can't climb upstairs. OK, so it can climb upstairs. Talon 1, Daleks 0. In fact, the Talon can also climb rocks, negotiate barbed wire, go potholing, and be used as a skateboard. It's not fallen off the back of a lorry, you know, though it can do that too. It's even good at handling hostage situations.
In many hostage situations, it would be very, very helpful to get to use a shotgun on a robot, and we do that with our Talon, and it will blast open a locked door. And then the robot can go inside the house, climb stairs, and use its two-way communications to have a discussion with the hostage.
Release the hostage, or we will send in Schwarzenegger.
Of course, robot research has been going on for decades. There have been some amazing advances in making artificial animals. Robot monkeys, robot spiders, robot puppies, robot ants, and robot robots. But what about human robots? That's what we all want to see. A ruthless killing machine that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Cybernetics boffin Kevin Warwick is working on it. He took the evil menace of Arnie's endoskeleton, stuck its head on a pole and brought it to life. Morgui is programmed to keep his beady eye on you. Friendly-looking thing, isn't he? Great for looking after the kids.
This is Morgui, actually based on a Terminator head, which you might recognise. As I clap, then Morgui should respond to different sounds. At the moment, it's listening to my voice, so very much focusing in on me. And if I click around the other way, then we can see Morgui moves around in response to the sound, and now looking back at me because I'm talking again.
OK, Morgui's not exactly a ruthless killing machine yet, but he's a really good listener. And if he wasn't just a head, he might even be a good shoulder to cry on. He's an incredibly sensitive robot.
Morgui has 5 senses: vision and hearing, very much like humans, but ultrasonics, a radar nose and an infrared top lip. What we're trying to do is to look at how Morgui can think with all that 5 sensory information coming in, multi-sensory data.
Remember the bloke with the wooden Terminator arm? He thought that he'd already climbed the scientific Mount Everest with his ingenious contraption. Imagine his surprise when he saw the second Terminator film with an even more elaborate cyborg. Rob knew that the robotic gauntlet had been thrown down.
There's a scene in Terminator 2 when he meets Miles Dyson and he has to convince him that he knows what he's talking about. He capes his arm and he runs a knife around it and he just pulls off the skin and there's this shiny little hand underneath. And I thought I'd have to make one of those as well. So this is the one I did for A-level. One of the really big problems is working out how to attach the stuff to yourself and how to get it on. So this one actually splits open like that.
Rob takes mere moments to fit the tiny robotic arm over his own. And you'll be amazed when you see what it actually does. Is that it?
This one's much heavier, it's much more powerful, no really useful function for it.
Really, Rob, get a grip. Rob has taken his love of the Terminator and made a career out of it. He now runs Europe's largest lab dedicated to creating robots that grip things.
This is Kronos 1. This was the first investigation into the biology, the mechanical structure of the human body. The most convenient source for the dimensions were myself. So I simply stood next to it as often as possible and would measure distances. Because robots won't require any digestive system as such, there's a lot of internal space for batteries and motors. It can move itself about a little bit, but it's nowhere near the strength it needs to be.
Exit Kronos 1 and enter Kronos 2, made almost entirely out of used rubber bands.
This machine is elastic in nature. It's not stiff like the standard robots are, and this is to try and emulate the way that the human body works. So here I'm using electric motors instead of muscle. I'm still using the tendon systems, and at the end of that there's a piece of elastic, and that provides some of the spring.
Stay. And what does it do? Well, gripping mainly.
Can't do anything with it yet, but when it's got a bit more coordination, then it'll be able to do something.
Looks like the Terminator films really have a hold on Rob. He's really grasped the concept. He's certainly not clutching at straws.
It's not a bad grip.
Let's move on. Rob may have been impressed with Arnie's metal arm, but in the second Terminator there was a new killing machine in town, and a whole new set of special effects thanks to director James Cameron.
James invented special effects for that movie that became everybody used in all the other movies after all.
It's so rare, really, when you see a special effect that's like, oh my God, how is that possible?
But for us as viewers, we'd never seen anything like it.
You just see that guy break out of the fire. He walks, he's the silver, and then he goes into the silver with the uniform and my features, and then it goes into me. All that had to come together as one, so you would buy it.
And how do you make Solid Man into Liquid Metal Man? Of course, just shave his head bald and Tipex his face.
They decided to lock my movements down in those grids, and they painted it on me, and they put me on some sort of turntable kind of thing, and they literally painted these things on a skull cap and some nudie briefs I had on, and they spun me around.
Robert's not reminiscing about a particularly wild weekend. He's talking about the groundbreaking motion capture techniques used to create the liquid cyborg. But Robert couldn't just rely on jaw-dropping special effects to seem so terrifying. He had to compete with the legacy of Arnie, a world champion at looking from side to side.
I was familiar enough with what Arnold had done that I tried to mimic some of the movements that I remembered him doing. I was told that T-1000, my guy, was a fluid mimetic polyalloy. Much more sophisticated, faster, sleeker, stronger, smarter.
In order to play the perfect cyborg, Robert turned to the world of nature for his inspiration.
It was as if I was like an Indian, and I was listening and looking and just thinking. I was in my head going like, all right, now I'm a bug, you know, and I'm a cat, and this is what a cat looks like, and this is what a bug looks like. Birds came to mind, and like the eagle came to mind, and if you look at the face of an eagle, the eyes are kind of shrouded, and their beak looks like, they look like they're moving.
Okay. Despite the genetically confused inspirations, Robert managed to instill a sense of pure menace in his Terminator, and pure liquid menace at that. One man is so awestruck by the idea of a liquid metal robot, he's actually decided to make one.
I can build a T-1000. I have the technology. I have built the prototype.
Make a real T-1000, you say, out of liquid metal? How?
We could approximate the liquid metal by making out of metal boxes about 1 centimeter in size. As we get smaller and smaller in the brick size, the machine becomes more liquid-like because you see less and less detail from a distance. So by the time they get to about 1 millimeter in size, the machines are practically liquid metal, just like the way you see it in the Terminator 2 movie. I've been out there in China building the real machine, and I have got bits of the real machine, which is this, and it's incredibly complex looking.
Doesn't look very liquid at the moment. Right, I think we need a demo. Okay, it still doesn't look very liquidy, but to be fair, it's a work in progress. Eventually, Joseph plans to shrink his cubes down so small that they really will look like liquid metal. A bit like this. Joseph was also inspired by Cyberdyne, the company that creates the Terminators in the movie. He decided to name his own company in their honor.
I was looking for a company name that would emulate what was seen in the Terminator 2 movie, which was Cyberdyne Systems, I think it was. And I thought, yeah, Robodyne Cybernetics. I went and registered it, got it straight away.
For now, Joseph's still playing catch-up with Hollywood, but he hopes that one day his metal cubes will look more like this. Creating the T-1000 wasn't just about the liquid metal. It had to exude menace, right down to the way it walked.
There was a lot of discussions about forward movement and what it would look like to lock on a target. You know, just a little head tilt down, you know. That kind of conveyed it. And then now get the stance of the walk, how he's going to move, there's going to be no wasted motion. And so for a human, you know, like when we start in a dead stop, you sort of push to the left or push to the right, however you go. But we didn't want that. We wanted this guy to look like he was constantly going forward, so you knew that this guy was just going to keep coming. So we had to eliminate the push to the left or the push to the right. So it was from a dead stop, how do you go straight? And so I had to go and study martial arts.
Whilst Robert was trying to walk like a robot, scientists are developing robots that walk like a robot. Well, humans in general. Professor Martin Smith has put together a crack team of the world's finest legmen.
What I've done is I've tried to get the people who have been making legged robots, and so we can get a leg start.
And taking direct inspiration from the film, their mission is to create their very own Terminator.
What we hope to achieve is to make a two-legged, human-sized, humanoid-looking robot, so that something that looks like Terminator and doesn't act like Terminator. We don't want something destructive.
No killing machines here. Their Terminator will look great and be useful around the home.
If you want to make a robot that's useful to you in the house, it's got to be able to climb stairs and go up steps, and so it has to be really two-legged.
After spending years wondering why their robots kept falling over, they made a groundbreaking discovery. It helps if they've got massive feet.
A human is normally 7 times as tall as the foot is long. Now, with these robots, you can cheat a little bit by making very big feet, and that makes it very much easier to walk. The other thing, of course, there's no body and there's no head, so that makes it a bit easier as well, so it doesn't topple over.
Being all legs and no head, these little fellas are excellent walkers, but sadly, they don't have a clue where they're meant to be walking to.
This big robot works in a somewhat different fashion from the other robots. It works by just bouncing from one foot to the other, and it turns out that by just bouncing about, it's easy for it to walk.
OK, that's hopping robots taken care of. So what possible use could these legged things be put to?
The Japanese have a program of trying to make a robot football team by the year 2050. Perhaps that might be possible at something like 40-something, 50 years.
Back in Essex, Rob is one step ahead of the Japanese football robot builders. He's already kitted Kronos out with his own pair of football boots.
As far as we know, the only rolling knee joint has been developed yet. And that's much more similar to how the human knee works. Well, there's just a cable that runs down from the back of the thigh to the underside of the calf. And it's the muscle you use to flex your leg.
He may not have taught it how to kick yet, but it knows how to take a dive.
It got to the point where it could fall over, but it didn't have the strength to actually lift its weight. So the next thing will be to get the legs working.
As the 3 Terminator films progressed, the producers wanted to make each Terminator more terrifying than the last. Arnie, the brute force in the first one, the liquid metal shapeshifter in the second. So for the rise of the machines, what could possibly be even more terrifying? Of course, a woman.
I always wanted to have a woman, a bad woman, kicking to Arnold in the movie. I thought it would be nice.
She was certainly a lot sexier, and her morphing, she could change instantly.
Kristanna Loken was cast in the role of the Terminator TX. Her qualifications included being a supermodel and the ability to wear tight bodysuits. Kristana hadn't had a great deal of success before Rise of the Machines, and frankly hasn't had much since either. But for a short while in 2003, she was really, really famous.
In her raw, naked form, I think I liked her best.
The Terminatrix may have been a rather sexy baddie, but there was only one woman with the balls to take on two brutal robot assassins and win. In the first Terminator, Sarah Connor was already accustomed to the daily terror of looking at her 1980s hairdo in the mirror. How much scarier could a deadly cyborg possibly be?
In the first film, she is just a woman who works in a restaurant and isn't really doing much with her life.
By the time she gets to the second movie, she's a bit like Rambo with softer hand. You know, she's very masculine, a bit of a cartoon character.
The great thing about Linda Hamilton's role in The Terminator was that we finally were seeing a damsel who was not in distress. This was a chick who kicked that had arms that were the envy of some men.
And she hardly had to spend any time at all getting herself into such good shape.
I started working out with a trainer 3 months prior to shooting, all last summer, working 6 days a week, 2 to 3 hours every morning, doing a lot of aerobics, running, stairs, a lot of leg work, and then free weight 6 mornings a week, too.
It wasn't just the boys that loved the new pumped-up Sarah Connor.
I believe the Terminator role that Linda played opened the door for a lot more action films. I think it was cutting edge in that, and she's an excellent person, and she was an excellent action star.
She had a great sort of visual look, and it was very much, again, women bought into this because she was a strong female figure. She was a thinker, she was a creative, and she was a doer.
Linda Hamilton, not a delicate, whimsical, flimsy actress who was running around with her clothes falling off. She was somebody who was very real and rounded, and not something we'd really seen in sci-fi up until that point.
Sarah was the first of many sexy action heroes with a big gun, a short fuse, and a tight vest. The films also changed Arnie's life. He went from nobody to big body to somebody over the course of the Terminator trilogy, and Schwarzenegger was now shaping up for quite a surprising career change. As a chimney sweep. No, wait, as Governor of California. And he came with ready-made campaign slogans.
Hasta la vista, baby, to Saddam Hussein.
Ingenious, Arnold.
In American politics today, stars have enormous advantages. First, they have capacity to connect with people and get hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of free publicity.
Ray Davis's terminated dreams, Ray Davis's terminated opportunities, and now it is time that we terminate him.
With witty rhetoric like that, no wonder he was elected to office in 2004. If you would like to be a successful politician, here's a handy 4-step guide. 1. Get born in Austria. 2. Spend day and night in a gym pumping iron. 3. Pretend to be a robotic killing machine. And 4. Become Governor of California and kiss lots of babies in lederhosen.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie persona as the Terminator is what he tries to give to his constituency.
I think Arnie would have been ridiculous if he tried to run in California without acknowledging that and bringing some of that humour to the podium, and he's done that an awful lot, some might say, to the excess of actually bothering with much in the way of policy.
Who needs policies? The Californians have got their very own Terminator. You've got something on your forehead, love.
But you guys are the true Terminators.
However, not everybody sees Arnie as a brute force to be reckoned with.
I was picturing Conan, you know. I saw Kindergarten Cop.
The original Terminator was a low-budget sci-fi film set in the cheap-to-film present day. But James Cameron still managed to convey time travel. Namely, coming from the future to the past to change the future. From the past.
Terminator is an incredibly simple concept for a movie, which sounds a lot more complicated than it is.
In the future, there's a big war going on between humans and machines.
They are struggling a fighting resistance led by a chap called John Connor.
A Terminator travels back from the future
to kill off this woman called Sarah Connor. The reason why is because Sarah Connor is going to give birth to her son John Connor, and in the future John Connor will be the leader of the human resistance.
It gets a bit more complicated when one of the resistance fighters from the future travels back to try to stop the robot.
And what you actually get out of it is something called a predestination paradox.
Only a fool messes with Grandfather Time. That's exactly the kind of thing that Albert Einstein might once have said, but didn't. With this grave warning ringing in our ears, we have to ask the question, could we ever travel back in time? Even proper serious scientists aren't sure, such as this man, Professor Michio Kaku.
Isaac Newton believed that time was like an arrow. Once you fired it, it never deviated. 1 second on the Earth was exactly 1 second on the Moon, was exactly 1 second on Jupiter. Along comes Einstein, who says, not so fast. Time is more like a river, Old Man River. A river which meanders its way across stars and galaxies, speeds up and slows down as it does so. In the Terminator, we have the possibility of changing the past, but that raises the question of paradoxes. For example, if Arnold Schwarzenegger killed accidentally his creator in the past, then how could he exist? If you want to change the past, then time must fork into two rivers. So in other words, if you go backwards in time to change the past, perhaps you've opened up another quantum universe. And all you've done is really change somebody else's past. So there are no paradoxes whatsoever.
I want a second opinion. Professor Hawking, please tell us time travel will be practical.
Time travel will not be practical for the foreseeable future. If we were to warp space-time so much, we might create a bolt of radiation that would destroy anyone trying to travel back in time. Science fiction can unlock the imagination, but it is little help with the complexities of theoretical physics.
If you're still not sure about time travel, here's someone who knows precisely how it works. Robert?
I have no idea about the time travel. To be honest with you, I haven't. I had enough things to think of. I don't understand it. I love Stephen B. Hawkins. I've read his book. I can't comprehend. I can't wrap my head around that. You know, there's just some things I just can't. You just can't do it. Why? I mean, I'm glad somebody's thinking about it, but to be honest with you, I'm just trying to make a buck and be happy and live a good life and do the right thing. And time travel.
Yes, it can certainly make your head hurt.
Huh.
In the post-apocalyptic future, sending people back in time is absolutely no problem. However, sending back a pair of underpants is still beyond the realms of science.
They're that far in the future, they've come up with all this great technology, and yet he still ends up naked. Maybe it's just to show off what a great body he's got, but perhaps that's just me being cynical.
Of course, Arnie can't be terrifying with his bits hanging out, so he has to find himself an outfit, a look that says ruthless killing machine with homoerotic overtones.
He goes for a very functional mode of travel, the bike, because he needs to get around. He's just focused on chasing his prey. And he also then needs the gear to go with it. So he had the leather jacket and he had the shades. What it puts me in mind of is the baddie cowboy in the spaghetti western who always wore black and was on a black horse, and his motorbike becomes his trusty steed.
And it wasn't just the outfit people tried to copy. They actually tried to look like machines by attaching metal to their faces.
There are all those really gruesome bits where Arnold Schwarzenegger is poking around in his eye, and the flesh comes off and you see the metal gleaming underneath. And within a couple of years, there were kids on the streets trying for that look. People who started getting very heavily into, putting metal in their faces, body piercing, that kind of stuff.
I'd stay away from any magnets if I were you, mate. Arnie loved the biker outfit so much he cloned himself an entire army of leather muscle men. Of course, the leather look is popular with many groups, not just bikers.
I think maybe you could look at the Terminator movies and look at the preponderance of leather and look at the naked bodies and perhaps try and eke out a slight camp element to it. I'm not entirely sure. I think what you can say is it might have reinvigorated the biker leather jacket for a few more years. I'm sure the fashionistas were very grateful. I mean, I'm still wearing mine.
Talking of camp, we've seen how the Terminator has inspired blokes to go and build their own cyborgs, but one woman went a step further. This is Angela Campion. She loves the Terminator so much, she's actually written and filmed her own musical tribute to Arnie's cyborg.
Come with me if you want to live.
The process started with some particularly gruelling research.
We had to watch the film from beginning to end and log the whole thing really minutely so that we knew where the songs were going to come and where the jokes, if there were going to be any jokes, were going to come.
If there were going to be any jokes, they would have come in places like this.
We must destroy him and the chip that's in his head. We must destroy him or humanity is dead.
Decisions had to be made how to concertina it down in the most effective way and get it across as if it were the real thing.
Just like in the real Terminator films, Angela's musical has groundbreaking special effects. Except hers mainly involve cupcake tins.
The reason why we chose to do Terminator at the end of the day was because of my remarkable resemblance to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You're not here to kill me. I figured out that bit for myself.
We think that our versions are better because they're shorter, more concise, to the point, and they're funny.
We'll be the judge of that. In the Terminator films, the end of the world is brought about by man's over-reliance on technology. James Cameron imagined a world in which machines turn on their creators and try to wipe mankind off the face of the planet. Is this just science fiction, or is it a terrifying vision of what's to come?
One computer controlling the whole world? Yeah, I can certainly see that. The more and more we have ID cards coming into play, the more there's going to be computers controlling that.
The idea of robots being this very separate thing from technology is not so crude now as a prospect, and we realise that technology in itself, the way that computers can suddenly go off and take over via viruses and what have you.
There will be one computer, and there will be a world war, and we will lose it, and computers will take over the planet, and we'll all die.
If we are going to die, the dying could look something like this.
I think we're going to see robots acting against the humans if we go the way that we're going at the moment. Machines will only do what we program them to until they start learning, just like children. Once they can learn about things in their environment, and if they have been given the abilities to do something about it, which is clearly what we're doing with military machines now, then they will do their own thing.
There is no reason why a robot should want to kill us.
The Hollywood paradigm of autonomous robots ruining the Earth is something that needs to be overcome.
It's not going to come back from the future and be ready, so advanced that we can't touch it, so advanced that we can't understand it. We'll see it develop, and its capabilities and what people expect of it will grow with the technology.
I enjoy science fiction, but I don't take it too seriously.
The lesson of The Terminator is that it's a good story, it's good science fiction, it's not good science. In science, the machines are beneficial to humans.
Back in the good old days of the 80s, everyone was paranoid about a nuclear war that would wipe out mankind and generally make life really stressful. James Cameron took this fear and turned it into great family entertainment in his Terminator films.
when it ends on a nuclear apocalypse at the end of Part 3, I think that feels right. It feels in tune with the spirit of the Terminator movies.
If the world does come crashing down, where will we flee for cover? Some people were so terrified of the nuclear threat, as seen in the Terminator, that they built their own home bunkers. Photographer Richard Ross has documented bunkers from all around the world. He thinks they are hilarious.
I started trying to find out where people go when they are threatened. And just a mammalian species, we go underground.
Richard has travelled the planet looking for people who've dug a hole in their garden, stocked up on bottled water and baked beans, and are waiting for the end of the world.
This one guy, who was a very nice guy, and allowed me into his shelters and shared his life with me. I slept in one of his shelters. It was a 25-foot long, maybe 10-foot diameter shelter, and everything was precise. And you could see that this was his sanctuary. He painted it yellow so that his little girls wouldn't be afraid of it by the steel gray of it. He tried to make it look very Disneyland-esque.
Of course, a dingy yellow pipe just won't do if you're a world leader. Why not stay in a 5-star hotel instead? This is the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia. It looks like a plush golfing hotel from the outside, but underneath lies a secret nuclear control center, just like the one that John Connor and his girlfriend find themselves stranded inside in Terminator 3.
The Greenbrier Resort it's an incredible resort, and it was built during the Eisenhower administration. It would house 1,800 people. The president, the vice president would go there, but Congress would go there, and they presumed that it would be a congressman, a senator, some sort of legislator, his wife, and an adult child, and maybe an aide. That's how they made their numbers. And they provided liquor, but no condoms. Hey, it's the end of the world, you know, so what the hell? Let's all get drunk and each other's brains out.
In the unlikely case that there is a nuclear holocaust before the end of this program, please take the following precautions. First of all, please remain calm and go directly to your personal nuclear blast shelter. Now relax and help yourself to the lifetime supply of tinned meats and fruit that you've previously purchased. Unfortunately, if you haven't already got a tin opener at this point, it's far too late to go back out and get one now. Just wait for 200 years or until surface radiation has reached comfortable levels. If you don't happen to have a bunker in your back garden, don't worry. Richard says there are some countries that have more bunkerage than they actually need. You could run along to any one of the following paranoid nations:
Switzerland, Texas, Utah, Western Montana, Israel, Cheney and Bush.
Okay, some of those sounded more like politicians than countries with bunkers. So who would be left, post-nuclear holocaust, to repopulate the world?
Bush, Cheney, some Israelis, all the Swiss, a lot of Mormons, a lot of fundamentalists, and the Roaches.
That certainly sounds like one hell of a party. Well, that's it. Everything you've ever wanted to know about the Terminator smelted down and fired at you like a bullet slicing through a chest made of liquid metal. Let's leave the last word to a man who's glimpsed inside the mind of the Terminator machine.
Recreating human beings, it's a bad idea. I just want to go on the record for that, to say that. It makes for a great movie, great villains. It was a wonderful opportunity. Thanks for the job. But I don't think we should do it, really.
You have been warned.